Well, good morning. If you will open up to Nehemiah chapter 5. That's on page 730 if you have my exact Bible. Some years ago, a couple years ago, I served my last day in active duty. And so let me just paint that picture for you. Let me show you what that looks like. I show up. I've had to do some administrative paperwork stuff, because I'm getting out. But I still have to do a shift on the rack over at the NSA campus. And I'm there. Okay, now it's done. I've finished. Logged out for the last time. Okay, and I have to go. Get one last signature so that I can be out of there. And I was an enlisted personnel, and if you don't know, here's just a little bit of background. That means I have stripes on my arm, not bars or flowers or leaves or anything on my collar. But what that means is, so on the NSA campus, like everybody's an officer except just me, right? And so when I'm leaving for a shift, especially if it's morning, everyone's coming in. This is what it looks like. First of all, the parking lot is a quarter mile away from the building because you can't have. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So you're just yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Yes, sir. How are you? Oh, good morning, sir. Right? Because you got to salute everybody who's got some sort of officer rank on their collar. It got so bad because they don't say, "Oh, let's make it easy on the enlisted guys." So they don't bother to just all come in packs. So they come all strung out like through the. So there was one morning where I just, "Yes, sir. Good morning. Appreciate it. Yep. All right. You have a good one too." Like I didn't even drop it. And so, because you're in uniform. So on my last day, I brought civvies with me to work. That's civilian clothes for you civilians. And so I clock out, I run down, I'm in the bathroom, I'm changing, boom, ha, kicking off the boots. I don't have to wear you anymore. Ha, throwing off the blouse. I don't have to wear you anymore. Ha, putting on my sweats and, just let's do it. And I go and I get the final signature, and I run into the bathroom to get everything loaded in my backpack, and I catch myself in the mirror. And it's a whole change of attitude from the whole rest of the day, right? See you later, suckers. Oh, you got wrapped into another enlistment. Woo! Okay, see you in 5 to 6 years. To This will be the last time that I ever wear this uniform. And what I thought in my head was, today's the last day of the time in my life where I did the most meaningful thing that I'll have ever done. And I look at myself in the mirror and I think, so what now? And I already knew the answer for the next day. I had a whole month's worth of leave that they wouldn't let me take that I squished into the very last. So I'm getting paid for a whole nother month for doing nothing. So tomorrow I'm sleeping in, I'm watching cartoons, I'm eating cereal in my underwear. That's what we're doing tomorrow. But after about a week of that, it hit me again like, okay, what now? And I ride the metro up to the Capitol, and I just stand out there, and everyone's moving around because they're all visiting and taking pictures or whatever, and I'm just thinking, so this will be the last time that I come to the Capitol. So this will be the last time. This will be the last time. This will be the last time. And that thought is always followed up immediately by, okay, so what now? And we're doing chapters 5 through 8 in Nehemiah today, and it's in those 4 chapters, that the wall gets completed. Right? That was the whole mission. That was the whole reason that Nehemiah went. That was the whole reason that he gathered the people, was to rebuild the wall. So now the wall is rebuilt. So what now? What do we do now? And the reason that I think reading through Nehemiah is so powerful is because when I was struggling with that question, I didn't know. I didn't have the answer. What now? I don't know. And I just floundered. Some would say I'm still floundering. I'm here today. I got dressed this morning. So what now? And in the scripture, it shows us that there are so many more steps. We get paralyzed by success. Have you ever thought of that before? When your whole life is all about this road, this journey that you're taking to try to get to this point, just to try to get to this end goal, just to try to get to this benchmark, then once you hit it, you lose all sorts of purpose, all sense of purpose. Like, what do I do now? My whole life has been about getting to this point, and now what? Now what do I do? And so in chapter 5, we see how Nehemiah does that. The first way that he does that is to take care of some other things that were present in the area. And chapter 5 is all about Nehemiah helps the poor. And there are 2 ways that he helps the poor. We as Christian people are really good about one way, but we as people in general really struggle with the other side of the coin. So if we're going to look at poverty or need of any kind, like a doctor would, then the challenge is to understand that not having enough money to do the things I need to do, to pay the rent, to take care of the family, those are all the symptoms. And so when you're begging on the corner and I drop $1 in your cup, that's a Tylenol. That's an Advil. I'm taking care of the symptom right now. But there's an underlying cause for why that arrangement took place in the first place. And that's much, much harder to address. In Nehemiah's case, he's helping people with the poor. It says in chapter 5, verse 10. I'll give you a second to get there. It says, first, Nehemiah helps with the symptoms. He mentions me and my people, this group, this entourage that came with me. We've already been giving to the poor. We've already been helping financially with the situation that's happening, with what's going on here. We've already given to that. But Nehemiah knows that you can't just stop there. That's why he's a great leader. Then he addresses the issue, and he goes to the nobles, and he says, you guys are taxing these poor people to death. And he gets their mind switched. He gets their mind right. It's more than just addressing the symptom, it's addressing the cause. So after we have that success, after the wall is built, then we take care of the surrounding issues. His was the poor people. The next that I think is great is the word gets out that the wall is completed, right? And so he starts getting these messages sent. And the messages say, hey, why don't you come talk to us? We just want to talk to you for a little bit. But Nehemiah is a smart guy. He knows that the message that says, come talk to me, is really a message that says, hey, come let me kill you a little bit. They hated it. And so he sends back a message that says, no, I'm busy, I'm not going to come. No, I'm busy, I'm not going to do that. Because he's not going to allow himself to be subject to distraction and destruction. he stays on point. He stays focused. Yes, the thing is done. The wall is built. We're finished, but we're not finished. There's still things that I'm doing. I can't be distracted with your calls to go get coffee and to end my life because I'm doing stuff. And the thing that I love about that interaction is that the last message they send is, hey, we just wanted to tell you, word's getting around. King is going to hear that you're trying to establish yourself as, king of this area. That's going to be bad for you. Why don't we meet and talk about it? And if they had only known that they were losing that battle before they even wrote the note. Because see, what they were trying to do was they were trying to get Nehemiah scared by bringing in a higher authority. Like, yeah, you don't want to meet with us. We get that. But the king, you don't want to make the king mad. That could be the end of your life. You want to be really careful. The king, he is the highest authority, so you don't want to mess around with that because that could be really extra dangerous. But the whole reason Nehemiah went in the first place was because he was in the favor of God, who is the highest authority. Have we struggled with that? I have. I have struggled with that, where I'm so focused on whatever the higher authority is here locally, and I mean on earth. I get so distracted by these things that are pulling me off course or not helping get to the completion of the task. And I get scared because there's a higher authority and it's, well, you gotta please them, or you gotta appease them, or you have to do what it is that they say so that you can keep working. And there's this balance that you struggle with all the time, that I struggle with all the time. How do I do what needs to be done, but at the same time, balance this relationship with this higher authority well enough that I can keep doing what I'm doing? And that's just me allowing myself to be distracted. Giving in to distraction and therefore destruction. If I would just say, you know what, I can appreciate that you're in charge of a bunch of things, but my authority the authority over me is so much higher than your authority over me. And I'm jealous because Nehemiah got it on the first hit. And I still have to learn things like that. But isn't it great that we have the scripture so that we don't always have to get it right on the first time and we can come back and see the way it should have been done? I like that. The next one, let's jump to chapter 7. In chapter 7 and verse 2, it talks about after the gate is set up and the doors are in place and everything's completed, Nehemiah leaves people there to do certain jobs. Right? He leaves his brother there to be in charge. He leaves guards. He leaves all these people in the entryway. And he says in verse 3, here are the instructions for what you are to do. Another thing I struggle with. I used to have this picture, well, not a literal picture, but I used to have this image of a leader, and the leader was always the one who had his hands on everything, who had his fingers in everything, who had control over all the pieces. Right? The one who made the decisions was the leader. The one who handled this and handled that and took care of this and took care of that. That was the leader, and that was the leader I wanted to be. Wow, look at how reliant everybody is on that person. That must be a great leader, right? If people really rely on you. In the scripture it says, a leader will put the right people in place to do what needs to be done. To get things done the right way. Nehemiah recognizing, I'm not the person to stay here and do this. Let me put the right people in place. And in verse 3, this is something that's huge. And it's just one of the verses. He gives them instruction, what to do and how to do it. It takes more than just, hey, I think you would be good to handle this. Go handle it. It takes more than that. When we're talking about ourselves as FBE and we're in this transitional phase, and we're looking for a leader for the church, it would be irresponsible for us as the body who have been here, who have grown up with the church, who know the culture, who know the people, who know the needs, to say, all right, bud, we got you in view of a call. That sounds good. Vote. All in favor, aye. Okay, no nays. Have at it. Good luck. Godspeed. See what I did there? The leaders who were left received instruction also, so that they could be efficient in what they were doing. We can't miss out on that part, because it's just as important as finding the right person is giving them the thing to do and how to do it. Let's keep going. We talk a lot in chapter 7. It starts in verse 6 and goes all the way to 60. Talks all about these people that they gathered back. Because remember, they had been exiled. The walls went down and they scattered. And so now that everything is repaired, let's get the people back. And there's lists and lists of this number of this family, and this number, and this number, and this number. And here are the men of Bethlehem. And here are the priests that came back. And here are the Levites, and here are the temple servants. It's just lists and lists. And so I'm looking, because I know this is what we're doing today. And so as I'm writing, I'm looking for, okay, so where's the scripture that says, and they didn't like some of the people who had scattered in the first place, so they didn't bother inviting them back. And I'm still looking for it, because I don't think I'm going to find it in there. Something that we struggle with because we're humans is this idea of, I don't need you. Right? You bother me. You're a nuisance to me. I don't like the way your face looks. I don't need you to do what I'm going to do. Except that while I'm scouring the scripture, trying to find any other verse that talks about how if you don't like someone, just push them away. If you don't need them, just get rid of them so that it can be support to the story. Instead, I'm finding 1 Corinthians 12:21. The hand doesn't look at the eye doesn't look at the hand and say, I don't need you. I don't need you. If we are the body of Christ, then we need to understand that one part of the body doesn't look at another part of the body and say, I don't need you. I don't need you. And what's amazing is, you know that my hand has no idea about how my eyes work, right? The brain gets them all working together so that when I encourage us as one of the main points to let that sink in. And one of the things we're very good about doing is we start the time together this morning with, hey everybody, welcome home. Hey everybody, welcome home. This is FBE, we like to say, welcome home. And I love that we do that. I don't want us to stop doing that. I love that we do that, but I want it to be the home that Nehemiah would have built, as opposed to the home that we go to when we have Thanksgiving and that weird uncle comes and we wish he just wouldn't. That's a main aspect here, okay? If we keep going, in chapter 8, it should be just one page flip or maybe not even. In chapter 8, we talk about Ezra reads the law. So they gather all the people, and they get Ezra, who's in charge of the law, to stand up on this platform built high so that everyone can see. And it says that he reads the law. He reads the word of God out to these people. And by the way, I was having a conversation with a brother in Christ earlier this week who said, I've got this idea to do this thing, but it's like an hour's worth of just scripture. Just like an hour's worth of scripture. And I don't know if people can sit through that. And I'm thinking, dude, Nehemiah chapter 8 says that Ezra started reading the law in the morning and didn't stop until noontime. So I don't know what your morning is, but gosh, that's like what, 4, 5, 6 hours? And here's the part that I love most about it. It talks about the reactions to the hearing of the scripture. And there are 4 reactions. Reaction number 1, response number 1, worship. Response number 2, mourning. Response number 3, celebration. And response number 4, feasting. Clearly, some of us are a little better at feasting than others. But the reason this is highlighted in my Bible is to ask a question. And it's not meant to be a hot poker, but if it hurts a little, okay. Worship, mourning, celebration, feasting. When was the last time any of us had this sort of natural, uncontrollable response or reaction to the scripture? How long has it been? Or a scarier question, has it ever been? Have you ever heard the scripture and it was so moving that you were moved to worship, that you wept from hearing the word, that you jumped up and shouted and clapped your hands in celebration and said, yes! Or that you went and got a whole bucket of KFC. I don't know. Churches, right? Like, when was the last time we were moved like that by the scripture? I heard a story on the radio. I'm sure it was David Jeremiah talking. I love that guy. He talks about there's this church and they brought this well-known they brought this well-known actor that was kind of popular in the area, born in that town and then became kind of a big deal. And they brought him to the church, and he stood up, and they invited him there to read the Lord's Prayer. And he And he's not super articulate. But he leans in and with a sincerity as opposed to a polished delivery begins. Our Lord, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Before he was all the way done, the people are just sobbing. And a visitor who was there said, "Okay, so I don't get it. This guy is like a big deal. He's a big deal. He's a big time actor. And he comes and he reads the thing and he got like a golf clap out of it. Like, oh, yes, great. But then this other guy gets up and he reads it, and we're all so moved. What is that about?" And the answer is because one knew the words, and the other knew the Father to whom he was praying. I think that I am incapable of sufficiently and adequately emphasizing the importance of Scripture. It's so important that they read it for a whole day, nonstop, and the people were moved. Do we have that? Have we had that? Do we have that? And then not just to step all over everybody, but to leave with some hope is, could we have that? Is that a possibility? In 2018, can we be in a place where when we hear the Scripture, it elicits emotion, it elicits response, it elicits reaction from us that is greater than what we could control? Is that a possibility? I think it is. Let's pray.